What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. So it's being reported that Juventus want to renew Alexandro's contract even if he doesn't reach the minimum amount of matches that he needs to reach in order to get his contract renewed. So obviously if you guys don't know, he does have a clause on his current contract where if he does hit a certain amount of matches played, he will get his contract automatically renewed. But it does seem like Juventus will be renewing his contract regardless. Now this has obviously been confirmed by one of the most reliable sources of Juventus in Romeo Agresti, who obviously, as we all know, he is probably the most reliable source when it comes to Juventus news. And this has led to a lot of backlash in the Juventus community. A lot of people do feel like Alexandro should not have his contract extended. And obviously the real question here is that should he get his contract renewed or not? Now obviously we all know when Alexandro first came into Juventus, he quickly became one of the best fullbacks in the world. He came in the 15-16 season from Porto, and in the beginning he was being rotated with Patrice Evra, but despite this fact he still showed his quality every single match that he was playing. But his breakout season really came in the 16-17 season, where he became a part of the starting 11 of Juventus and he very rarely missed matches. Every now and again he would be rotated for Asamoah, who found a new role as a fullback, but for the most part he was the starting left back of Juventus. And this was a season where he became one of the best fullbacks in the world without a doubt. You would probably put maybe Marcelo in front of him. People would argue for someone like Jordi Alba, but apart from those two, he was probably the best left back in the world. You can obviously argue for a few other names, but he was at least a top 5 left back in the world. And he continued with great performances even onto the 17-18 season. But in the 18-19 season, he showed a few struggles. He was still that good left back, obviously still consistent, and was still without a doubt one of the best fullbacks in the world, but he did have a slight drop off in performances. Now in the 19-20 season, he had his first bad / mediocre season when we did change our managers. We went from Allegri to Sarri. Now obviously changing managers and going from a manager who is quite defensive minded to a manager who is more attacking obviously affected Alexandro's game. I mean, especially considering he was playing under Allegri for what, 4 seasons till that point. So changing manager definitely had an impact on his performances. But obviously, as we all know, Sarri at the end of the season was indeed sacked and Pirlo was brought in, where in my opinion he had even more mediocre / bad performances. This due to the fact that if you guys do remember, under Pirlo we did have that formation change where we were playing that 3-5-2 / 4-4-2 hybrid, where we would change our formation depending on whether we had the ball or not. This would mean that when we did have the ball, Alexandro would go a bit further up the pitch, and when we didn't have the ball, he would come in as a fullback. Now this is a bit of a problem because by this time in his career he showed a decrease in his attacking ability. Before he was really good even in attack, even in defense, whilst now it seemed like he was pretty much good only in defense. His crossing was really poor, and him giving an attacking contribution was very rare. If I'm not mistaken, he had 2 goals and 2 assists that season, which for a fullback is quite poor, especially for one who was playing as a wingback when we did have possession. But as you all know, at the end of the season we did sack our manager, and in May of 2021 we rehired our old manager Massimiliano Allegri. Now say Alexandro had a lot of experience with Max Allegri as his manager in the past. As I said before, he had 4 seasons under Allegri, and those were probably his best seasons in the Juve kit. And in the beginning of the 21-22 season, he really had a good start. He showed signs of his former self and he was really playing good, but his performances really started to drop off around the halfway point, the Supercoppa Italiana, gifting Alexis Sanchez the winner, and that mistake made pretty much everyone beat Alexandro out. And to be honest, even I wanted Alexandro out of my club after that horrific mistake. I mean, gifting your rivals a trophy when you're 10 seconds away from penalties is a total disaster. But then we continue on to the 22-23 season, where he had a slow start as usual. I mean, we were all used to these mediocre Alexandro performances, decent in defense, but he contributes basically nothing in attack. But there was a crucial switching point in the season where basically the entire team started playing better, and that was when we changed formation in October. If I'm not mistaken, this formation change came against Torino, where we switched from a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2 to 3-5 at the back. Now this meant that Alexandro was going to be playing as a center back, more specifically as a left center back, which is a perfect role for his abilities. As I said before, he's not really good in attack, but he is really good in defense, which this position is perfectly suited for. And ever since that formation change, he has been really solid, a lot of the times being really good. And this is probably the reason why Juventus are considering renewing his contract. A lot of people are stuck in the past thinking about Alexandro in the past few seasons, where he has undoubtedly been pretty poor, but in my opinion, renewing him for another year doesn't really have a lot of risk, considering it is obviously only a year extension. But the only problem with this is his massive wage of 11 million gross, which obviously means here's around 8.5 million per year, which is a massive wage. But at the same time, renewing him would mean that we wouldn't have to go out in the transfer market to buy another fullback. I'm saying this considering Pellegrini has not impressed at all on loan at Frankfurt, barely playing, and also even if Juventus Juventus decide to give Cambiaso a go, we still cannot rely entirely on him, considering that would mean that the backup to Cambiaso, if you would assume that he would be the starting left back of Juventus, would probably be De Sciglio, who we all know is not really good. So renewing Alexandro really doesn't have much of a risk, apart from the fact that we would have to spend a lot of money on his wage, but we would rather spend 11 million gross on his wage or spend even more money in the transfer market, especially in a period where we are really unstable financially and we also have the risk of missing out on Champions League football next season. So if you were to ask me, should we renew Alexandro? In my opinion, it is a yes. But if you were to say that we shouldn't be renewing him, I wouldn't really be mad at that opinion, because you also have to take into consideration the fact that he is performing good in the last year of his contract. We all know when players are in the last year of their contract, they tend to play better because they either want a big contract from a different club or a contract renewal at their current club. Regardless, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Should Juventus be renewing Alexandro's contract, or should they let him leave? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, and subscribe content, and see you in the next one.